بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طيب, in our last two sessions we started 2 weeks ago, okay, and in the first session we discussed the biography of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. We discussed who he was, where he came from in the bit of his life. Okay, that was our first lesson. Then last week we discussed the introduction to the book of the 40 Hadith. So Imam Nawawi, he wrote an introduction to this book himself. Okay, so we went through the introduction and we highlighted certain important points in it. And the most important thing that we really highlighted was that the reason he wrote the book is that there's a hadith that says whoever memorizes 40 hadith, then he will be resurrected as a scholar on Yawm al-Qiyamah, okay? Or he will be resurrected amongst the scholars. It's another narration. But the Imam Nawawi himself says the hadith is weak, right? And then in his introduction he says, even though the hadith is weak, it's permissible to act upon weak hadith if it's there for fada'il, for virtuous deeds, then you can act upon it. So we basically commented on that quite a bit last week, and we mentioned that there's 3 opinions regarding that, what he said. And the first opinion is that you can act upon weak hadith in general. The other opinion is what Imam Nawawi said, is that for virtuous deeds you can act upon it. And the third view is that you cannot act upon weak hadith at all. And we said that is the strongest view, and we gave proofs for it, and we refuted their proofs. So that's why it was, a bit of a discussion, and we discussed it quite a bit. So we came to the conclusion that it is not permissible, or it's not appropriate to be acting upon weak hadith, whether it's for virtue or not. Okay. So today we move on into the book. So we're starting with the first hadith, which is إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Right? It's a famous hadith that probably we've all heard of or read it at least. And the hadith is narrated by Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, where he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. Right? He said that all actions are but driven by intentions, and verily every man shall have that but which he intended. طيب. So firstly, the takhrij of the hadith. Right? The hadith is narrated by quite a number of Sahaba, or rather, it's only narrated by one Sahabi. Right? The only Sahabi that narrates this hadith is Umar. No one else narrated this hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. So there is some ikhtilaf amongst the ulama that is this hadith authentic, is it weak, this and that, right? So some categorize the hadith as gharib, some categorize the hadith as mutawatir. Mutawatir meaning that it's impossible for the hadith to be weak, right? Meaning it has been narrated by so many people in each chronological link of the sanad that it's inconceivable that all of them could have agreed upon a lie. Okay? Meaning so many people narrated it, how can this hadith be weak? That's what mutawatir means. That there is no doubt that this hadith is authentic, basically. So we say that the hadith is not mutawatir in terms of its chain, but it is mutawatir in terms of its meaning. The meaning that comes from the hadith is definitely that it's definitely authentic in terms of the meaning, because it's backed up by other ahadith and by Quran, and that is that every action is based, or it's driven by an intention, and that you get that which you intended, right? And this is we find throughout the Quran. But in terms of the sanad, then there is nothing wrong with the chain of narration either. Even though it's only narrated by one Sahabi, Umar ibn al-Khattab was trustworthy. He was, in fact, according to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, all kulluhum udul, right? Every Sahabi was known as just. He was a just or trustworthy narrator. Okay, so even though, and this is known as khabarul ahad, right? In terms of hadith, khabarul ahad, when something which was narrated by one person only, or khabarul wahid, meaning one person narrated this hadith only. Okay, and just aqidah benefit, some groups like the Ash'ari, they say that you cannot use khabarul wahid or khabarul ahad in matters of aqidah. Okay, you can only use it in fiqh and other issues, but everybody uses this hadith, and this is an aqidah issue. And this hadith is agreed upon that, like I said, no one really is going to come and say we don't accept that hadith. The hadith is authentic, right? But this you can say is a proof because everybody uses this in Aqidah as well. طيب? Okay. So some general comments on the hadith, right? Ulama that said, or rather the importance of the hadith, the way the ulama highlighted the hadith. Abu Ubaid rahimahullah, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he encompassed all of the affairs of this world in one sentence. And that is, Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad. Whoever innovates something into this deen of ours, that which is not from it, then that action is rejected. And he encompassed all of the affairs of the hereafter in one sentence. And that is, innamal a'malu bin niyat. And every action is based on its intention. Then Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah and Imam Abu Dawood, they would say that this hadith is half of knowledge. Understanding this hadith, applying this hadith, that's half of your knowledge already. Why? Because knowledge is either external or internal, right? External is the deeds that you're doing. Internal is the niyyah that's in your heart. Without that, your deed is null and void, basically, right? And that's innamal a'malu bin niyyat. So it's half of your knowledge that you already have if you understood this hadith and the power of this hadith properly. Then Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he said that the foundation of Islam revolves around 3 ahadith. Firstly, actions are but by intention, innamal a'malu bin niyyat. Secondly, man ahdatha fi, again, whoever introduces something new into the deen, that action will be rejected. And innal halala bayin wa innal harama bayin. That which is permissible is clear, and that which is haram is clear, right? And this hadith and the previous hadith of man ahdatha, we're going to get to later. It also comes in the arba'un, right? So he said that these 3 ahadith, they make up the foundation of your deen, right? If you understand them properly, then you got your foundation sorted. طيب, and bi'idhnillah, we're going to cover all of them, inshallah, all 3 ahadith. Another important point about the hadith, or that shows us the greatness of this hadith, is that many of the scholars of hadith, when they began their books on hadith, they always started with this hadith. Okay, the first hadith that they put was this hadith, innamal a'malu bin niyat. Even Bukhari rahimahullah, the great Sahih Bukhari, he started with this hadith. Even though those books of hadith are built upon abwab al-fiqh, right? They are in chapters of fiqh, like firstly tahara, then salah, then zakah, etc., right? But before that, he put innamal a'malu bin niyat. Why? As Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi said, it's a must for everyone who is to write a book to begin with this hadith. Why? In order to instill within the student the need for proper intention. Because what's the use you study all those abwab but your intention is not right, right? So before we jump into the book, the rest of the hadith, it's important for us to realize now is the time to understand this hadith, and now is the time to rectify your intention. That the reason you're sitting here is not to, impress anyone. It's you're here to impress Allah, right? You're here to gain knowledge of Allah's deen, and you're here to remove whatever ignorance you have from yourself, to remove it from yourself, right? طيب. So the hadith starts innamal a'mal, right? The word innama. Okay, so what does the word innama mean? Arabic student.
Indeed. Only.
Indeed only. It means indeed only, right? The word inna means indeed. Inna, right? Inna Allah, verily Allah. Oh. So inna yufidu tawqeed, meaning inna is there for emphasis. Verily Allah, surely Allah. With me? Inna ma means verily only, indeed only, meaning it's there for emphasis and for exclusiveness, right? It makes something exclusive. Okay, for example, Allah says innama yakhsha Allah min ibadihi al-ulama, right? The only ones who truly fear Allah are the ulama, right? Those who really have fear of Allah, they are those who have knowledge of Allah, those who have knowledge of His Sharia, right? So Allah says innama yakhsha Allah, those who truly fear, the only ones who really fear. So it doesn't mean others don't fear, but those who really fear, they're those who have knowledge. So the more you increase in knowledge, the more you're supposed to increase in your fear of Allah. So here he says innamal a'mal, right? So to translate the hadith as actions or by intentions is not sufficient, because the word innama was used. So therefore you should say surely, or indeed, or verily, all actions are but by intention. Do you see the difference? So if you understand this is again, importance always comes down to Arabic. The more your knowledge of the Arabic language, the better you're going to understand the depth of the text that's going to come to you from the Quran and Sunnah. And that's why lots of translations don't do justice, because these are tricky things and intricate things that you may not pick up in a translation. But if you understand what innama means, you will understand that, okay, it's not inna, and there's a big difference between the two, okay? So he says, innama al-a'mal. Al-a'mal, right? So the word a'mal is the plural of the word amal, right? So amal means your deeds and your actions, okay? So one amal, many a'mal. And the Prophet ﷺ used al-a'mal, okay? So when a noun like a'mal takes an al, it becomes definite, right? Becomes ma'rifa or ma'ruf. That also, in terms of usul al-fiqh, that tells you that this thing is general. So innamal a'mal means all your actions. You with me? Innamal a'mal means all your actions, because a'mal now becomes am, becomes something that is general, so it becomes all of your actions, right? And that includes your speech, your physical actions, and the actions of your heart. So actions are of three types. In the Sharia, actions are of three types. Firstly, the actions of the heart, which is your niyyah, and then you have your actions of your tongue, which is your speech, and your actions of your physical actions, like your salah, your zakah, and your sadaqah. Those are physical actions. All of them are known as a'mal in the Sharia. So all of this are but driven by intentions, okay? Okay, then there's an issue that comes up, and that is the niyyah. So we're talking about a'mal bin niyyat, right? We all know what the word niyyah basically means, right? It refers to the intent in the heart that must accompany and precede any act of worship. So before you do an act of worship, your intention, or whatever your intent behind that worship, that's your niyyah, okay? We know what the word niyyah means. But the place of the niyyah, that's the first mas'ala that comes up. Where is the place of the niyyah, right? Is it on the tongue? Is it on the heart? Is it, basically Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he says that the scholars are in agreement, that there is ijma' on this fact among the scholars, that the place of the niyyah is on in the heart, right? There's no such thing as a niyyah to be uttered with the tongue, right? Standing on the musalla and saying nawaitu usalli fardh as-salah is a bid'ah. It's something that was innovated many years later. There's no ahadith that speak about this. None of the scholars of the past used to say or used to utter the niyyah. Right? Where it came from, we don't know. Somebody made it up, nawaitu usalli, all these words, somebody made it up along the way, right? But it's not from the Sharia, okay? And even Ibn Taymiyyah argues that it's something that's nonsensical, right? It's in your heart to pray. You're standing there to pray. Now you're telling Allah, oh Allah, I intend to make. Allah knows what's in your heart, right? Who are you fooling, basically, man? When you're uttering your niyyah, I intend to make ghusl, right? But why are you in the shower? You were in the shower to make ghusl, right? When you get up to fast, why did you wake up half an hour early? Why did you have suhoor? To fast. So you don't need to say nawaitu sawma ghadin. You with me? The same.
Ask you a question.
Yeah.
In the heart, like for example, you get done and you go to the masjid to make salah, so making fajr. You get there and you just like you don't have to. You just have to know that you're making fajr. That's it.
Why did you go for fajr?
Yeah.
To make fajr. So you don't have to sit there and tell your heart, I'm here to make fajr.
Yeah.
The fact that you got up fajr time, made wudu, went to the masjid, or even if you're making it home, the fact that you're there making fajr time, is your intention was to make fajr. It's not to make isha, not to make the sunnah or fard, right? Your intention was to make fajr. You with me? So you don't need to speak from the heart. It's in the heart. That's what's meant by the place is in the heart. And there is a statement from Imam Ash-Shafi'i, right? Where some people claim that he said that you must utter it on the tongue. But the scholars have refuted this. And basically what it says is, when Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah stated the difference between the prayer and the inviolable state of the pilgrimage, he stated that the prayer begins with a statement. Prayer begins with a statement, Imam Shafi'i said. Some people concluded that he meant that the mentioning of the intention, what he meant by the statement is the niyyah. That's what some people said. But actually he was referring to the takbir. It starts with a statement, meaning it starts with Allahu Akbar, because that's what starts your salah. You with me? So they came and they twisted his words to say that what he meant by this was a niyyah. But if he meant that, then what was the niyyah? He didn't even teach us the niyyah then. You with me? So what he meant was obviously the takbir. And likewise with hajj. So there is a mas'ala where some have said that the only time you utter the niyyah is for umrah and hajj. Okay? Some have said that the only time you utter a niyyah is for umrah and hajj. And so before you make umrah, you're supposed to say labbaik Allahumma umrah. Okay? So some say that's the niyyah for umrah. But according to what ash-Shafi'i is saying, and Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah says the same thing, they say that is part of the rituals of hajj. It's not a niyyah. The way you start salah with Allahu Akbar, the same way you must start your hajj by saying labbaik Allahumma hajj or labbaik Allahumma umrah. You with me? So they're saying it's not a niyyah. The niyyah is still in your heart, but that's part of the rituals of hajj. That is the way you must start your hajj, the same way you must start your umrah with, or your salah with the takbir. Understood? Okay. Right, so the phrase إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, right? What does this phrase mean? Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, he says that the first phrase إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ is the sabab, that's the cause, right? As for وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, that is the consequence. Okay, so you have a cause and a consequence. So the first one is a cause in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes it clear that every action must have an intention behind it. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means your actions are but driven by an intention. Meaning, everything you do must have an intention. It's something logical, right? Something rational. That if you go for salah, you must have had an intention to get there. You can't go there. You couldn't have just ended up there. That's unless you were sleepwalking or something. But if you are at your senses, you're not being forced, then إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means that your actions must have gotten you there. Or rather, your niyyah must have gotten you there, must have driven you there. That's why it says actions are but driven by intention. So that's what إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means. As Ibn Uthaymin says, how can you perform a deed while you are rational and freely thinking without being coerced and do it without an intention? That's something that's illogical. That's impossible because the deed results from want and ability. The want is the intention. Therefore, the first sentence means that there is no doer but that he has an intention. There is no doer but that he has an intention. This is what إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means. Okay, then he says, however, intentions differ, right, and can differ as greatly as between the heavens, and that's what he goes on, and he says that one may have the loftiest of intentions, while another person's intention is in the gutter. Okay, moving on. So he says, the basic premise is that there is no deed done without an intention. That's what إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means. As for the second phrase, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, that is the consequence of the first one. The consequence meaning, the consequence of that is in the Prophet's words, and for everyone is what he intended. So every action is driven by an intention, and the consequence is, and for whatever you do, or for whatever you intend, you will get. Right? If you intended good, then you will get good. If you intended bad, you will get bad. Understand? If you intended the pleasure of Allah and the hereafter in your Sharia deeds, that will be achieved for you. If you intended this world, then you may achieve it or you may not. And this will come to another mas'ala again. But basically, if you intend goodness in your deeds for Allah's sake, then He will reward you accordingly. Right? You will get good coming back to you. But if you intend good for the dunya, then you may get it and you may not get it. Because Allah gives the dunya to who He wants. And He gives what of the dunya to who He wants. So the who and the what, He decides of the dunya. So you can strive your life for the dunya. Allah decides who gets from the dunya and who doesn't. But in terms of the sharia, you work for Allah, He will give you. Your reward is confirmed. If your niyyah was sincere, then your reward is basically confirmed. As for the dunya, then you cannot be confirmed. And then he brings a dalil and he says, Man kana yuridu al-ajila, ajjalna lahu fiha ma nasha liman nurid. Okay? Whosoever desires the quick passing of the dunya, right? Meaning the enjoyment of the dunya. Whosoever wants this, because the dunya is quick passing. That's why Allah says ajila. So whoever wants the ajila means something that's quick, something that's fast. So you want something that's quick and passing, meaning the enjoyment of this world, then ajjalna lahu fiha ma nasha. We readily grant him we will for whom we like. So Allah grants the dunya for who He wants and what He wants. You with me? So Ibn Uthaymin says that he did not say we readily give him what he wants. So just because you work in dunya, maybe you did something for the sake of a car. Your whole intention was you did this for the sake of getting this car. Allah will decide if you get that car or not. Just because you wanted it, doesn't mean you're going to get it. You with me? And that mas'ala comes up later again. Okay, so we're speaking about intentions that you will get what you intend. Okay? Then the scholars have said that there are three types of intentions. You get a good intention, you get a religiously neutral intention, and then you get a bad intention. Okay? As for a good intention, or an evil intention, right? A bad intention. And an evil intention is when you intend to do anything that's haram, right? Even if you claim that, no, my motive or the reason I'm doing it is good, the fact that you're going to do something haram, that's an evil intention. طيب. Right, so in all cases, the person shall get only what he intended. If his intention was good and pious, it means that the act was for the sake of Allah. His intention was good, so the end result will be good. As Allah says in Surah Al-Rahman, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Is the reward for ihsan nothing but ihsan? Is the reward for good deeds anything other than good? If you do good, you will get good. That's what Allah is saying.
So then, what about if you do intention for like the lesser of the two evil?
For example?
So like I think they said like I was just came across, I was listening to Sheikh Muhammad West about this whole voting story, whether we can vote or not. And I think like you choose it's based on sort of the lesser of the two evils, and it was something of Sheikh Uthaymeen, and there was something about that in the what we actually do vote in a Western society or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Meaning what party you choose, which party. Yeah. So,
because if you don't vote, then
it could be more. In fact,
yeah.
Ibn Uthaymin says it's wajib to vote. He says that. He says it's depending on the situation. He says it could be wajib for you to vote,
But
because if you don't vote, someone worse will take over.
Yeah.
Then you should have taken a stand and at least done your bit, type of thing.
But that action is not haram.
Say again.
But that action is not haram.
What action?
Voting.
Because if you vote for a kafir, for example,
Yeah.
it's the lesser of the two evil.
Yeah. Because obviously you can't establish Allah's law here,
Yes.
right? Because of the hukum, unless you see that this is a technical thing now. Obviously we're supposed to vote for a Muslim party, right? But now your main vote has to go to one of the bigger groups, am I right?
Because the issue comes in where if you don't vote,
Yeah.
then you throw your vote away basically, because the
Yes,
stats will prove that ANC wins
Wins, yeah.
if you don't vote.
But so I say both parties, the big parties stand maybe for like things against Sharia, like for gays and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And all of them stand the same thing.
Prostitution.
And
You
there's
still
Muslim
vote
parties,
for
and
it.
there's, but there are few Muslim parties, and you vote for the Muslim party rather.
Yeah, then I would say you vote for the Muslim party. I would say that.
In the case of America, like it's between
It's
Hillary
two
Clinton and
parties,
Donald
yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
They're both bad in their own way. So would you vote for?
I would vote for it.
Don't vote.
Because would you vote for in such a case?
But the thing is, like in that case, you're actually giving your vote to
Is
the
it like
one
that
that
in
the
America
masses.
also?
This, basically,
I
statistically,
understand
it
what you're
works like
saying.
that.
I understand what you're
Statistically,
saying.
it works.
Yeah,
like
so that's why you must get masalih and mafasid. Right? Maslaha and mafsada. So sometimes you have to weigh up the pros and cons, man. So you have to look, if I do this, then even though it's not ideal, but it will be less harmful for us than doing that. You understand? You have to weigh up the pros and cons. There are certain times where that's going to happen, man. In a non-ideal situation, it's going to come up. So, like with the voting story, it comes up there. So, like Bin Uthaymin says, that it's wajib to vote in certain times, because in terms of the maslaha and mafsada, if you don't vote, then you're giving your vote to the worst party. So you actually but rather give your vote to someone that's good. So that, yeah. So again, your intention was there, man, to avoid the harm.
To avoid the harm.
So you will get reward for your intention. Because as the second side says, لِكُلِّ إِمْرِئٍ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ إِمْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. And you will get what you intended, man. Okay? And I think this will become clearer as we move on. Okay, so if you intend good, you get good basically, right? Then we said that you are allowed to have a religiously neutral intention. Meaning, you can intend something that's maybe not, that's permissible to do. For example, in the hadith it mentions the one who makes hijrah for the dunya, or the one who makes hijrah to get married to a woman. Comes up later in the hadith, right? So can you make hijrah? Can you move from a country to get married to a woman? That's jaiz, it's permissible, right? So this is a religiously neutral intention. One example, okay? It's permissible for you to go out and get married to a woman, and even if you must move, that's okay, it's permissible, right? Obviously there's no harms and no haram along the way. But in this case, it's permissible, but you may get it and you may not get it. If you did something good for the sake of Allah, it's confirmed. In this case, you may get it, you can get there and you can marry the woman and you achieved your goal, you achieved your intention. You may get there and she may say, she don't want you, man. Then you didn't get it. So you intended was there, but you may not achieve what you intended. And then the evil intention, obviously the resultant will be evil. You intended evil, you will get evil. Meaning you will be punished by Allah, either in this dunya or in the hereafter, or both, of course. And that's of course if you don't make tawbah. Now Allah says, and you will not be requited nothing except for what you used to do. وَمَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. What you do is that's how you're going to be treated, man. That's how Allah is going to reward you, or He's going to punish you based on your deeds. Okay, so now many issues come up regarding the intention. Okay, about how powerful intention is, the benefits of understanding how the intention works, right? For example, intentions go beyond your actions. Intentions go beyond your actions. The niyyah can take one beyond what he can actually do with his physical deeds. For example, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a man, he was ready to go out for jihad. His intention was there, he was ready to go. So what happened? He passed away before they left for jihad. So his daughter said to him, I wished you had died a martyr, for you had prepared for it. You prepared to be. He was ready to die, he was ready, but he passed away. Right? So his daughter obviously felt sad. She said, I wish you died a martyr, because you prepared for that. So the Prophet ﷺ stated, Allah has given his reward for him according to the extent of his intention. So he was given the reward of a martyr, because he intended that, even though he never went to battle and never fought. But because of his intention, his reward was written for him. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba, they were on an expedition, right? So they went out on their way basically for jihad. So he said to the companions, that in Medina there are people who we left behind, right? But we do not pass through any valley or any ravine except that they are with us in reward, because they were kept behind for valid excuses. So they couldn't do jihad, they couldn't go with, but they wished, the intention was to go, but they had a valid excuse not to go. So it says, for every valley that we move through, for every ravine, they are with us in our reward. Meaning, because they intended it, it's as if they were there. You understand? So this is the power of one's intention. You intend the good, then it's written for you. Obviously, you can't say, I intended to fast, and you don't fast because you're lazy. That means your intention wasn't sincere, right? So this applies in many instances, man. For example, you can think of a woman. She intends to fast the coming Monday. It's a sunnah to fast on Monday and Thursday every week, right? She intends to fast, and she fasts as often as she can. Sunday comes, she gets a haid. She can't fast, but the intention was there. That reward is written for her. Because had that haid not come, she would have fasted. That reward is written for us. Even though she has a haid, it's as if she was fasting that day. You with me? And that can apply to anyone. If you are constant in your fasting and you say, you make a firm, resolute decision that I'm going to fast Monday morning you're sick, that reward is written for you, man. Because your niyyah was sincere, it was there, and that reward. So your niyyah goes beyond your actions. And this can apply in many cases. So always have the intention. Make the intention firstly, and then you can always strive to fulfill it. Okay, so what types of acts are included in the innamal a'mal? So we said it includes all actions, right? Statements, your physical actions, and the actions of the heart, right? But there is some ikhtilaf on is the non-performance of an act included in your actions. What's meant by this is staying away from an action, not performing something. Is that included in your a'mal? You understand? For example, you see some haram there, or let's use an example. What's the example is the other night? Of a woman, right? There's a woman standing next to you in the shop, right? By not looking at her, is that considered an action or not? You understand? We said all actions are judged according to its intention, right? And whatever your intention you'll get. But the non-performance of an act. So looking would be an action, right? Not looking, is that considered an action or not? The non-performance of an act. What?
You know already that she isn't there, so automatically you are.
Yeah. So what? Why not looking at her?
Because
It's haram. So is that considered an act of worship or not?
yes.
Right. Now that's where the ikhtilaf comes in. Because that not looking is you're not looking. It's a non-performance of an act. Do you understand? By
understand
lowering your
what you're saying.
gaze or closing your eyes, that's a non-performance of an act. Is that included in?
So does the Sharia then allow you to first look and then go away?
No,
Is
of
that
course
what
not.
the Sharia is saying?
No. The issue of looking obviously is accidental look.
But isn't if you interrupt a guy, it's a form of worship because you obeying command Allah interrupt.
100%.
But is it
But-
action? No? Is it action?
So it counts as an action,
Yes.
according to the correct view. But just to say, there are others that say the non-performance doesn't fall under a'mal because we're not doing anything. You understand? But even here, it comes back to your intention. So let's say there's you and a lady standing by a counter. You know she's there, right? If you are busy on your phone and you never looked at her because you're busy on your phone, right? Do you get the reward or not?
Okay, so
If you didn't know she was there.
Even if you knew she's there, you know there's a lady next to you, but you're busy on your phone. And now you pay and you go, right? Do you get the reward or not?
No.
Why?
Because you there was an intention not to look at her.
Why? Because each one will get that which he intended. Your intention was never to look at her in the first place. Your intention was just you play and you want to pay and go, right? But if you're standing there and you know there's a lady and you purposely don't look at her because you know it's haram, you tell yourself, look at haram, I'm not going to look. So for the sake of Allah, you're not looking. Now your intention was to avoid haram, and for that you'll be rewarded. You understand? But the brother's reading a book there, or he's playing with his newspaper or with his phone, and he's not looking just because he's busy. There's no reward for him in this instance, man. And on this issue, the leaving off of haram, I think Ibn Uthaymin, he brings 4 different situations, man. Okay? But that's another topic on its own. That's usul fiqh. Anyways, so the point here is a non-action is also considered an action, right? And you will be rewarded depending on your niyyah. If your niyyah was not to look because you know it's haram and don't look and for the sake of Allah you're keeping away, then you will have your reward. But if your niyyah was something else, then not looking at that, there's no reward because your intention wasn't to look away for the sake of Allah. Understand? And again, these instances and examples can be used for many things. Man. Staying away from haram, there's how many examples, man. Understand? Someone invites you to a wedding. You know there's intermingling, there's music, it's haram to attend, right? Then what happens? You have another wedding on another day. So you go to the other wedding and you expect the reward for staying away from the wedding. You can't. Because you stayed away because you went to another wedding. But if you tell them or you say, look here, I'm not going to that wedding because it's haram. I'm going to go to the other wedding because it's not haram. Maybe they have a better, more Sharia compliant wedding. So it all comes down to your intention. You understand?
So even like in a case like that where you tell yourself, okay, because some people say they won't do like birthday parties, but then now someone else of your family gives a birthday party. So they say because we want to keep the family ties, we go to the birthday party, but we don't give birthday parties.
Yeah.
So it's a whole demaka.
Yeah. No, that's now abusing you can't make a...
You know what I'm saying? You don't support it,
Yeah.
but
They
you
still
want to
can't
keep
go.
family ties. So
The point is there are many other ways to keep family ties.
yeah.
You don't have to go to a birthday party to keep a family time. And you can't also support him in haram. You're supposed to go there and say, look here, la yajuz, whatever. But to go there and support him in it, then you'll fall part of the sin.
But say, for example, someone's maybe building a mosque now, but you know that they're going to do innovation in the mosque now. Because they're people of innovation.
Yeah.
Can you then support that mosque?
I would say you support the Sunni masjid. Find a masjid that you know is on Sunnah and Tawheed and support them. Because there are masajid and most of them are struggling. So why support the masjid who gets money and they're still upon batil? And tomorrow they're going to fight you also. So in such a case, I would say no, you must support the masjid that's upon Sunnah.
I was going to ask you, in last week, this guy spoke about his birthday, and then he spoke about the Prophet ﷺ said that he fasted every Monday. It was because of revelation coming down on a Monday, was it? And because he was born on that day.
Yeah.
So one guy said, no, if it's like your birthday, like my birthday, then you can fast to show gratitude on your birthday. I said, you can't do that because otherwise the Sahaba would have done that on their birthdays.
Yeah, no, that's, no.
You can fast on Mondays and Thursdays.
Yeah, you fast on the legislated days, man.
Yeah.
Or you can fast every second day even if you really want to fast on that, because that's also the fasting of Dawood alayhi salam. Right, so Allah only accepts the deeds done sincerely for Him and in accordance with His Sharia. Right, so if one of your deeds to be accepted, it comes down to the sincerity first and foremost, and then it must be in accordance with the Sharia, meaning it must be from the Sunnah. Yani if there's anything that opposes Tawheed, meaning your sincerity, then your deed is null and void. If there's anything opposing the Sunnah, like a bid'ah or innovation, then your deed is null and void. And this is based on the hadith, Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad. Whosoever innovates anything into the deen, then that which is not from it, then that action is rejected. Meaning any innovation, there is no reward for it, and the deed is rejected. Because the hadith says fahuwa rad, it is rejected. And the hadith is in Bukhari. So Ibn Ajlan, he said that a deed is not useful unless accompanied by three things: awareness of Allah, meaning your taqwa, then good intention and correctness of the deed. Okay, correctness of the deed meaning that's according to the Sunnah. Then the author also mentions a good point. He says there's another point that needs to be emphasized, and that is that if the intention is actually existing, the good deed must follow. Meaning, actions are the result of intention. Right? Innamal a'malu bin niyat. Actions are the result of intentions. Right? So if there's a good intention in the heart, and no obstacles are preventing that deed, then the good deed must follow. So a sign that you had a good intention is that your deed will follow. Unless there's a valid excuse, something came up and you couldn't, But a sign of a sincere intention is that the deed will follow. You intended to do tahajjud, you will do tahajjud if your sincerity was there. If you were really sincere, if your niyyah was strong and true, your deed will follow. Unless, like I said, maybe you got sick or something came up and you couldn't, man. It was an emergency and you had to be in the hospital all night, something like that. Then you couldn't do it. That's different. Right? That's beyond your planning. That's the qadr of Allah. Okay? But the principle, according to this hadith, that innamal a'malu bin niyat means actions are driven by its intention. Yani, if your intention was sincere, then your deeds will follow. Right? And many times you say, I intended to be there, but you were never there. We're going to meet this day, yeah. We're going to read Quran together, yeah. When it comes on the day, were you there? No. Why? I intended to, but something came up. The reality is intention wasn't really there. And then some people make it even worse nowadays. They throw inshallah into it. You with me? Inshallah we'll do it. Inshallah we'll do this. Inshallah. Right? And one of the Salaf said that to say inshallah and not truly mean it is that is a sign of nifaq. Right? To use the word inshallah, I'm going to do this and do that, but you don't really mean it, is a sign of hypocrisy. Okay? Okay. Intention.
Good question. So like a day, you put like the radio on, they're making Hadeeth and stuff on the radio. So all those people, they're going to good intentions now. So all of that, they rejected.
All of us rejected. Because a deed has two conditions: sincerity and ittiba' sunnah, must be according to the sunnah. Because the hadith says that those actions are rad. Rad meaning mardud, meaning it's rejected. So just having a good intention is not sufficient.
But how come don't they explain to the people
Because they don't follow the hadith.
It's like a lot of people, like a lot of Muslims and stuff.
What happens if it's done like out of ignorance, but it's obviously rejected, but the intention, they get rewarded for the intention. Is that?
If the intention is
And they're not learning.
Maybe.
that's
Allah.
get nafs,
Okay.
What do you guys get to that?
purify themselves. They think this is purifying. This is what they believe. They believe that this is part of their tazkiyah, of cleansing themselves. Like this dhikr and this mawlud and whatever else.
Then they need dalil for it, and they don't have.
But you see,
Like
the ulama is telling them that they can do
Yes.
Right, so we say that those deeds are not accepted because it can only be accepted if it's in accordance with the Sharia, and it's not in accordance with the Sharia. So it's not accepted. But we don't say that they're sinful, and we don't say that they are innovators. Why? We don't say that because we can't pass a ruling. You see now, this comes under the issue of passing a ruling on someone. Okay? So saying someone is an innovator, saying someone is a mushrik, someone is a kafir, right? These things have conditions to it, and it has inhibitors, nullifiers, things that stop you from doing that, right? Of the nullifiers of doing takfir and tabdi' and tafsiq, meaning saying someone's a fasiq, saying someone's a bidati or innovator or mubtadi', saying someone's a mushrik, saying someone's a kafir, there are things that stop you from this in the Sharia. The main one and the most common one is jahl. So we have something known as udhr bil jahl, where you make an excuse for people, and the excuse is jahl. Udhr means an excuse bil jahl. The excuse of ignorance is made for people, right? So we don't say that all of these people are bid'atis. What they're doing is a bid'ah, without doubt, because what they're doing is not. We can't. So basically, scholars have categorized passing a ruling on people into two, right? So you have the hukum ala al-mas'ala, and you have hukum mu'ayyan. You pass a ruling on the issue at hand, and then you pass a ruling on the people that's doing that issue. So in terms of passing a ruling on the issue, we can't hold back, because here it's either qala Allah or qala Rasul, right? Mawlud, is it dalil? No. Salaf did it? No. It's a bid'ah. You can't hold back. You can't say, but the people, it's a bid'ah. As for the people doing the bid'ah, now you have to look at them and their condition. Are they ignorant people? Majority of them are ignorant, so we make an excuse and we say, you're not innovators, you are ignorant people who don't know any better.
Followers.
And you're followers of the innovators, who are the scholars who's leading them astray. Because those people, you can't make excuses for them. They know what's right and wrong. They don't have dalil, but they're
But are
still
they going to
pushing.
Jahannam?
That's in Allah's hands.
But I mean, like, it's the act. I'm not talking about them. The act that they
The
perform
act is an act of misguidance.
for Jahannam.
It's an act of misguidance. Any misguidance leads you to Jahannam.
All misguidance.
Yeah, any or all.
All.
Any or all, same meaning. Any or all misguidance, it leads you to Jahannam, right? If you commit zina, it will lead you to Jahannam. Am I right? You any act of
So like performing a dhikr
sin.
at the grave, for example. So you're not allowed to, my understanding, you're not allowed to do acts of worship at the grave.
Yeah, because what's legislated to go there, you can sit there and ponder about death. That's very good. Or you can make dua for the person. That's established. It's permissible. The Prophet used to do that. To go to Uhud, make dua for the martyrs of Uhud. Are you with me? As jaiz, as sunnah to do that. As we're going beyond the sunnah, now making it a dhikr, reading Quran and making dua to them, now you're going beyond the bounds.
Slaughtering.
Right? And what's the other? Yeah.
Ghusl.
You see, the problem comes in when they believe that doing the act of worship at the grave is more blessed, or more, there's more reward there, or there's more chance of our du'as being accepted, because now they don't have dalil for these things. Yeah, they're going to run around and tabarruk and all this. There's no dalil, right?
So,
But some of the mashayikh, like they say, that for example, that does innovation. If you like talk to them, they'll say, no, but their teachers taught them that.
Yeah.
So they believe what they're doing is right. So are they saying the jai or they?
Well, it depends, man.
draw
You
the
see,
line, like,
it depends, because you see, here in Cape Town, you get people who's mashayikh, but they're actually ignorant people.
yeah.
So you get people who studied, like these people who studied, for example, the same syllabus that I studied in Medina, they studied the right stuff, but they left that stuff behind. And they know what's right and wrong. So you can't make an excuse for such a person and say, no, he's an ignorant person. As for the local Imam P, he didn't know, he thinks he knows, man. He thinks he knows, but he doesn't know. You must be, he's a jail. And there are many such examples in Cape Town. Right?
So someone who goes to Medina and goes study at university, no? So basically it's clear for them.
It should be clear for them if they study properly.
So Aqidah and
Yeah,
everything
but I mean
Yeah,
to
that's
write the
clear.
exam, you can't almost give the wrong answer, otherwise you're gonna almost
Fail. So they lie. And there's many in Medina, many from UK, there's from South Africa, there's lots of Sufis, lots of Tablighis, and they're all undercover there, they're just there to use the Jamia. That's known.
Oh, for the certificate.
For the certificate, they use this to live in Medina, Arabic, all these things. Anyways, coming back to the book.
So the
Right?
intention is something else.
Whether, yeah, the intention is not there to study. It's
Not the
the,
truth, example.
I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it because, I mean, they're not there to seek the truth. I don't believe that. Well, Allah A'lam what's in their hearts. Okay? So, every deed must have an intention, right? We know this, right? Before you make salah, your intention must be, like I said, it would be there, obviously. But you must know that I'm going to make the fard now. You can't make and then realize I'm making fard the sunnah. Right? Before you go, you must know in your heart, you know I'm standing to make fard. And then sunnah, etc. Likewise, you jumped in the shower and you washed, and then you came out, and then you realized, yeah, I was in junub. Does that count as a ghusl or not?
No.
It doesn't count because you just jumped in the shower. Even though you washed everywhere, but your intention wasn't there in the beginning. So you must realize, hey, I'm in junub, I'm going to shower. The moment you're in the shower, that's your ghusl, man. You don't have to say nawaitu an aghsil or whatever the ghusl niyyah is. But before the act, your niyyah must be there. That's why Ibn Uthaymin says you must make istihdar of the niyyah. You must renew your intention and must bring it out, that you must realize what you're going to do. You don't just jump in the shower and come out and say, okay, I ghusled. But you never intended the ghusl, man. You got in the shower to shower. You with me? So there's a difference. So every ibadah must have must have a niyyah behind it, and before you begin the act of worship, you need to almost divide that niyyah.
So
Realize that I'm doing this for this reason.
you intend to perform a ghusl, you fall asleep, you wake up the next morning, and you just get into the shower, and you don't think of the niyyah. What is the situation?
I don't understand.
You need to ghusl, right? It's night time,
Yeah.
but you don't, right? You fall asleep.
Yeah. Oh, then you get up in the morning, you just jump in the shower.
You just jump in the shower.
I would say now you must realize that before you're going to shower, that even if you just realize, look, I'm in junub, I'm going to jump in the shower. That's sufficient, man. Because like I said, you don't have to tell yourself, man, this is what I'm going to do now. 5 raka'ats of...
Verbally, you don't have to say.
No, nothing. There's no such thing as a verbal niyyah. That would be a bid'ah. But as long as you get up and you realize that I need to shower, man, because I'm in junub. You with me? Then that's sufficient. But as for night before, I mean, your niyyah could change, man. You could now jump in the shower and then afterwards you realize, oh yeah, I was in junub, and then, okay, but I showered. Then that's not sufficient. You have to, what's the word? Not revive, like renew your consciously it must be there. So that's why there is a difference between just doing an act and doing an act with a niyyah. Okay? Then the other mas'ala that comes up is that there are various acts that you can do, but your intention may differ. So some people will be doing the same act of worship or the same act in general, but their niyyahs will be completely different. For example, that's why Ali al-Madini, right? He said a small act may be made great because of the intention, and a great act may be made small because of the intention. So this is the power of your niyyah. So for example, you have two people, Fulan and Zaid. Both of them are going to the masjid to make salah, right? The one's intention is that I'm going to the masjid first of all to fulfill the obligation upon me. Then I'm going to the masjid because I love going to the masjid. Then I'm going to the masjid because it increases the brotherhood in the community. And I'm going to the masjid because it increases my love of the masjid and of my attraction to the masjid. I'm going to the masjid because there is more reward in Jama'ah. You can have a lot of intentions at once, man. You with me? So his reward will be multiplied for all those intentions. Whereas the other person, I'm going to the masjid because my mommy said go to the masjid. You with me? So where's his reward and where's the other guy's reward? Same act, different intentions. But look at the power of the niyyah and the power of changing your reward and the act in itself. So many intentions, but there's one final goal. That is to please Allah and to fulfill the command of Allah, which is to pray in the masjid. You with me? But you can have many intentions, but they must all be leading to the same goal.
So a person make intention to get the Jama'ah in the mosque,
Yeah.
you come near the Jama'ah is finished, and you make Salah alone, you still get the rule of Jama'ah?
No.
No.
Unless maybe you had a valid excuse, you got caught up on the way or something. But if you come genuinely late, then you miss the Jama'ah, you miss the Jama'ah.
But that is the reward, you get the reward, but you lose the reward.
You'll get the reward for going to the masjid.
Not for Jama'ah.
But for the 27 times more reward, you missed the Jama'ah, so you missed it. You were late.
Now, what if someone joins on you while you're making?
Yeah, then you can form another Jama'ah.
Yeah, that's something else too. Once someone else say the two of us were standing behind you, and then one comes and then he taps one of you on the shoulder.
Yeah, but because I say this, guys, there's nothing to say. It's not not allowed, but also it's not ideal because it can lead to a whole chain reaction.
Yeah,
Where does it stop?
Yes, say you shouldn't do it because it will lead to a chain.
Chain reaction.
Isn't
Yeah.
it like
Then one person will just-
Yeah, you can remake it to make it a Jama'ah. But so you will have a nafil reward because he fulfilled his fard already. But I mean the tapping on things. You understand? He's talking about tapping on. So say now the Jama'ah is finished. He came late, so he stands up to make a rak'ah. I come in, I tap onto him. Then he finishes, I can, and then he comes and taps onto me. Then so it's a chain reaction. Ibn Taymiyyah says, when's it gonna end? It's a chain reaction, man. So what's ideal is you come in, you make a new Jama'ah. That's obviously if you can. Sometimes you come in, there's no one else. It can be a bit
You
tough.
still have to recite it for Maghrib, for example. You still have to recite it audibly.
What?
If the
Salah.
Jama'ah is finished, yeah.
Yeah, if it's Jama'ah, you must make Salah loud.
No, I mean like so you
On
can.
your own, I would make loud because then others can hear. Okay, he's reading.
But sometimes it's difficult because they make it loud.
Yeah, that's a problem with the dua, man. That's the problem. That now, for course, I couldn't. I was like, what am I saying? This brother making dua and more dua.
Yeah.
But why is it like that there? I mean, like it's a big thing, eh?
That's a tradition.
But I'm talking about like the Medina students that come, they also do it.
Yeah.
They say it's like
What can I say?
they have a podium and that's just all reason. I mean, like, look, I never knew about it. But if someone had to tell me, I would just accept it.
You see now you tell someone, but they say, yeah, but the other guy from Medina isn't doing it, so.
That's how people argue here. Another example, secular studies. Right? And again, these examples are, you can use it for anything. Right? You have someone he's studying to become a doctor because he wants to be known in the community. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Right? On the other hand, you have someone who's studying to become a doctor. Why? Because I want to represent the ummah, show the ummah that the Muslims can also represent. And I'm going to become the best doctor. I'm going to specialize, like Wadi inshallah, and become the best doctor. Right? And in any field, right, you can strive and your intention can be, I'm going to represent the ummah and I'm going to be the best to show the people that the Muslims are the best, right? And I can benefit the ummah when I'm working one day, etc. So your studies now becomes an act of worship. Your studies now becomes ibadah and you get reward for that. As the other person, there's no reward for him. And in fact, it may be sinful because it can lead to arrogance and all that, right? So any act can be used with your, depending on your niyyah, you can use any act, man. You with me? And so the point here was same act, different intentions. So you have two people doing the same thing, but because the intentions are so different, the rewards are, one is in the samawat and the other one's in the gutters. Like Ibn Taymiyyah said, niyyahs differ so greatly, like the distance between the samawat and the ard. And here the whole issue comes up now of riyah and sum'ah. Oh, sorry, but I think I'm going to leave that for now, because time is tight. And when we get to the next hadith, we're going to do Iman Billah and all that stuff. So then Tawheed and Ikhlas and Riyah and all that stuff are going to come up. So I'll leave it for now. Okay? Just one thing to touch on. That is, if you're doing an act of worship, first of all, any act of worship that has Riyah in it is rejected. Right? You do an act of worship and you're showing off, that act is rejected. There's no reward for you in that act of worship. Okay? Okay, I have to touch on it. What is riya? When you show off. Okay? So, you show off in your salah, okay, all of a sudden you make salah like this, like that, that's showing off. Your salah is rejected. Okay? Then you get sum'ah. So riya comes from what word? Ra'a, right? Which means to see, to look. That's riya. Then you get sum'ah, which comes from sami'a. Sami'a is means to hear. So sum'ah means when you seek a reputation through your worship. So you want to be heard about. That's why the word's called sum'ah. Okay? So when you do an act of worship, you want to be heard. You want people to hear about you. You seek a reputation that this guy is so pious, or this guy is so generous. You give him charity here, but you also in your heart you want to be known. You see, mashallah, he gave so much money for this organization. He gave. You with me? So there's something known as riya and sum'ah. They're very similar, but there's a slight difference between the two. Riya is basically when you do things in front of people, showing off. Sum'ah is when you do things when could be people may not even be there, but you want people to hear about you. Okay? Any act of worship has sum'ah or riya in it, which means your ikhlas wasn't there. That wasn't sincere for Allah, and that those actions are rejected. Okay? But now what happens if you're making salah, for example, and you get a thought that says you're showing off, right? Must you stop your salah? And so basically what the scholars have said is, if you're doing an act of worship, whether sadaqah or salah or anything, and you get this thought that, hey, you're showing off, if you can expel that and move on, then you expel it and you move on. You must ignore it, right? Otherwise it will lead to waswasa. Okay, and you will go crazy with waswasa. Then, what if that thought stays with you? Now what? The thought stays with you, right? You don't know now, it's still there, man. So what Imam Ahmad said is that and Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, they said that there is hope that you will still be rewarded for your original intention, which is sincere. Okay, so you carry on. Then al-Tabari said, it depends on the act of worship. Certain acts of worship, you can break them up. Others, you can't break them up into parts, man. For salah, you can't break it up. Salah you start, it only ends when you make taslim, right? There's such a hope, we hope that you get for your intention. As for Quran and dhikr, you started off with, and so Ibn Jarir says, you will be rewarded for as long as your niyyah was pure. The moment you got these thoughts, then your reward stopped. With me, because those are ibadat that you can break them up. So you're reading 10 verses, you were sincere, you get reward for that. After that, you may not be rewarded. With me? Okay. Then the niyyah and permissible deeds. We sort of touched on this already. And that is that, what's a permissible deed? Something which is mubah, right? Something that's mubah means you get no reward for doing it, and you get no sin for staying away from it. It's just permissible to do. Okay? So, depending on your niyyah, you can change a mubah deed to a mustahab, or rather to a deed that's rewarding. So mubah means there's no reward and there's no sin if you don't do it. You with me? But depending on your niyyah, you can get reward from something that's just permissible. Right? For example, I'm eating and I'm drinking water. Why? So I can continue teaching and doing a good job. That's why I'm drink water, to give me energy, to wet my throat so I can speak better, so that I can do a better job. Right? I'm not just drinking the water for fun. I can get reward for that water. You with me? I'm not just going to eat. My intention is to eat so that I can stand up and make salah properly. So I can worship Allah properly. So now all of a sudden through my eating, I get rewarded. You with me? Like the example of studying. Same thing, it's permissible to study, but you can make your studies rewardful, depending on your niyyah, because you now intend something greater through that. You with me? And in Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh, he said that I seek reward for my sleeping the same way I seek reward for my standing up and making tahajjud. Meaning, he slept so that he gained energy, so that he could stand up and make tahajjud. So the same way he sought reward for that great act there, he sought reward for that sleep. Understood? Okay. So here, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says that the most exclusive group of people who get close to Allah are those who change the nature of their permissible deeds into acts of obedience of Allah. They are the most exclusive of people, man, who came closest to Allah. The true worshippers of Allah are those who change those mundane deeds, man. Those things that you just do daily, but they change them into worship. He says those are the best of people, man. Those are the real worshippers of Allah. Right? And then he said, the customary mundane deeds are those people who truly know Allah are acts of worship for them. So eating, sleeping, getting dressed, going here, there, those people, they make these things worshipful. They change the intention and they make it an act of worship, man. Right? While the ritual acts of worship are customary deeds for the masses. And this is something that's so true, man. Right? When I read this, I felt like it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Okay? Those great people, they change everything for the sake of Allah. As for us, the masses, we take that which we're supposed to use to gain closeness to Allah, those worship that He ordained on us, and we just treat it like mundane acts. We make salah, why? To get it over with. Get to the masjid, we just praying, so I know I made my salah. It's clear. You with me? You fast Ramadan because I must. You know, it's clear, it's over. Right? But your intention wasn't really there to gain closeness to Allah. It wasn't really there to purify your nafs. It wasn't really there to, earn the great rewards that's on hold. So this statement of Ibn al-Qayyim is extremely true. Right? And it's something to reflect on. That true worshippers of Allah, they forget the salah and those things that they were, it's the other things that they thought beyond the worship, man. You with me? They made everything into worship. So the salah was obviously on point, their fasting was there. They were on another level, literally speaking. Right? Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, because it's his book, we can mention this. He says, he comments on the hadith that states that the person will be rewarded for having sexual intercourse with his wife. He wrote and he said, this hadith is evidence that the permissible deeds become acts of worship if they are accompanied by righteous intentions. So sexual intercourse becomes an act of obedience if it is performed with the intention of fulfilling the rights of the wife. Okay? So you don't just get it over with. You're not just fulfilling your desires. If you know, look, she has a haq also to this. So that's also one of your intentions. All of a sudden this thing becomes an act of worship for you. You get a reward for it. And treating her in a manner that Allah has ordered him to treat her. Right? You get reward for everything. Or if it is performed with the hope of giving birth to a pious child. So you have intercourse, hoping that you will have a pious child. You get reward every time. You understand? Or if it is done to fulfill his needs, or his wife's needs, and to keep them away from forbidden acts, or looking at forbidden acts, and so on. Okay? Again, intercourse is something that, it's just done for the sake of pleasure. Right? But you can make it such that, here Imam Nawawi gave it like 4 reasons that you can get rewarded. So your reward can be all 4. You with me? So you can make something that's pleasurable to you, but also extremely rewarding towards you. All with the power of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ فَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. Understanding this hadith is half of knowledge. We're starting to understand what the scholars said, man, when they said this, man. So half of your knowledge you already got in your hand if you really contemplate on just this one hadith. Okay, another issue. A proper intention, but wrong result. Proper intention, but wrong result. Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, a man gave some charity. He gave it to a man who was in charge of the charities. So what did this man do? He gave it to the same man's son. So this man went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, my intention wasn't for this money to reach my son, man. That wasn't my intention. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, for you is what you intended. For you is what you intended. When your intention was charity, it's done. Whether that money reached your own son or not, it wasn't what you intended was charity. For you is what you intended. And he told the son, for you is what you have received. So that money is yours. No one can take it away and say, yeah, but it's your father's money. For you is what you received. Right? So maybe you come across someone, he acts like a poor person, but in actual fact he's rich. So you give him money, why? Because you thought he's poor. Right? Later on you realize, hey, this guy's not even poor. So does it mean your charity is null and void? No, your charity is for what you gave it for. So it's for what you intended. So you thought he was poor and you gave it. Even if he's a rich person, it's still established because it's done for you, your intention. So even though the result is not exactly what you were looking for, but you get for what you intended. Understood? So al-niyya and al-ikhlas, that's
just the charity. Does it have to be for poor? What if you give it from charity for like maybe your mother or something? If she gives you a charity, but you don't need it.
But that's like a gift, isn't it?
But she says it's a charity. I'm just saying, I mean, like, does it have to be for poor? Because
No, it doesn't. I think charity you can give to anyone you want to, man.
it's not like it must be for someone that's poor.
No, I don't think so. As far as my understanding, that's for zakah. Zakah is now, there are specific people that you must give your zakah to. You can't just give it to anyone. Sadaqah is something you just give. Generally, you would want to give it to a poor person because then you'll be more reward in it. You understand? You're helping someone in a state that he needs help. So you give. So again, your intention can be you're giving from your money. That's your intention. Intention can be I want to help him. He's struggling. Understand? So, but I mean, you can give to anyone you want to, I guess.
But it is
No one's
virtue on spending on your family as well.
Yeah, of course. There's specific
But
virtue.
I Quran also says if you want to spend, just spend on your parents.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yes. Well, aqrabin.
yeah.
That's also one you have to give. Yeah. Meaning, that's why I say it doesn't mean because it's your family you can't give. But again, would it be termed sadaqah? You understand? I'm not too sure. But it could be termed a gift, hadiyah. Like if you're just giving someone who doesn't need it, you can still give them. But definitely, I mean, your families, they have more right to your wealth than others. So in that case, obviously you can give your family first. But I mean, sadaqah, like I said, is something open, man. You see a poor person on the road, you give him something. Like a parking attendant. That's the easiest way of sadaqah, I think. Because anywhere you go, they're there. Just give him something. You with me? Intention is right. Muslim, kafir, doesn't matter. Give him. It's sadaqah, you with me? So the point here is your intention was to give sadaqah. So you get that reward. And the same with the hadiyah. There's certain differences. But, I mean, just because it's family doesn't mean it's not sadaqah.
And you don't have to say anything also. Like some people say, you must say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you give him something.
You don't have to say,
It's again
It's
intention.
in your heart, most. Your intention is, Allah knows why you're giving it, man. What's the topic here? The topic is now the niyyah and ikhlas. They are basically the same thing, they go hand in hand. And that's the most important thing in your life. Is your niyyah, is your ikhlas to Allah. Right? We were created for what? To worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Okay, Allah says, I did not create the jinn or mankind except that they worship me alone. Okay? So you are here to worship Allah. Not to become doctors and lawyers and whatever. We're here to worship Allah. That's why Allah made us. You with me? And what else did He command us with? He commanded us with worshipping Him. Right? In a legislated manner, obviously. Right? And we know that Allah wants quality over quantity. Nah, Allah wants quality of worship over quantity of worship. So for example, Allah says, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكِ Blessed is He in whose hand is the dominion. Right? وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ And He is able to do all things. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتِ The one who created death. وَالْحَيَاةِ And He created life. Why? لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ To test everyone, to test all of you. أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا And to see who of you are best in your deed. Who are you are أحسن عملا. Who are you are the best in deeds. And on this, Fudayl ibn Iyad from the Salaf, he commented and he said, what this means is that if a deed is sincere and pure but not correct, it is not accepted. The deed is sincere and pure but not correct, then it's not accepted. But pure and sincere, he means that's sincere for the sake of Allah. By correct, he means it's according to the Sunnah. And he explained it himself later, and I'm not going to read the whole quote. But what he means is sincere for the sake of Allah, no riyah, no sum'ah, and it's done solely for the sake of Allah. So there's no shirk involved, right? And shirk is of two types, major and minor. Minor would be riyah and sum'ah. Major would be that you're worshipping other than Allah, right? So there's none of that. It's sincere for the sake of Allah. And then it's correct, meaning it's according to the Sunnah. And he says that himself, and it is correct if it is according to the Sunnah. That's his words. Okay? So, we are commanded with that which is quality over quantity. Quality meaning sincere and according to the Sunnah. And this again, we were talking about Hadeeth and all that stuff. That can fall under quantity, right? It's a lot of dhikr and lot, but where's the quality, man? You with me? How much of them are sincere? How much of them fall in the Sunnah in those acts? You with me? So this is the difference between the two, man. Right? And Allah, Prophet in Hadeeth, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ Verily Allah does not look at your suwarikum, at your forms, at your shapes, the way you look. Nor does he look at your wealth, but he looks at your heart and at your deeds. So these are the things that Allah wants, man. These are the things that He tests us with, that He really wants. That matters, man. Doesn't matter how you look. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are. What matters is what's in your heart and your deeds. Na'am, as this is what we were created for. And there are ample ayat that speaks about this. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. They were not commanded except to worship Allah sincerely in the religion. And hunafa'a, meaning sincerely. وَيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And that they must establish the salah and pay the zakah. وَذَلِكَ دِينٌ قَيِّمًا. And this is the correct religion. Okay? So firstly, sincerity, and then to act upon that sincerity. That's why Allah spoke about sincerity. Then He says, establish your salah and give your zakah. It's a combination in the ayah of actions of the heart and your physical actions. But the most important is the actions of your heart, because everything comes back to that. It's no use your salah is intact but your heart is somewhere else, or in your heart is something else. It's not for the sake of Allah, etc. Okay, next point. Intention is the key to eternal living in paradise or hellfire. Quickly, what's meant here is Al-Qari, Imam Al-Qari, he said that the reason for the entry into paradise is your iman, is your belief. That's why you enter Jannah, because you are a believer, right? The reason for the ranks in your Jannah is due to your a'mal, because of the deeds that you've done. Your levels will be raised. And the reason for your eternal entrance into paradise, the reason you will be there forever, is due to your niyyah, is due to the fact that you intended to always worship Allah. Even though you fall short, but as a Muslim, what's your intention? As a Muslim, your intention is, I'm always going to worship Allah until the day I die. That's my intention. Whatever comes, but my intention is, I'm going to worship Allah until my day comes, right? Due to that intention, that's why you will stay in Jannah eternally, because your intention was eternally to worship Allah. Understand? And on the flip side, what's the reason the kuffar enter Jahannam? It's because they were disbelievers. That's why they enter Jahannam. The rebels for the Jahannam depends on the deeds that they've done. And why are they eternally in Jahannam? Because they eternally intended not to worship Allah and to be disobedient to Allah. So because of the intention, that's why they are eternally in Jannah. As for the Muslimun, the Mu'minun, they are eternally in Jannah because of the intention. Again, power of intention. Right? Then the author speaks about the problem with the deeds of the disbelievers. Some of them are good people, some of them are humanitarians and charitable people, and so why is their deeds not accepted? Because firstly, no tawheed, right? No, they're worshipping who? Other than Allah. So automatically it's not void. Secondly, the intention was never there to please Allah. It was to please either the people around them or themselves, to make themselves feel good, or the intention was to worship for the other false gods. The Christians, and they all have their own false gods. Right? That's basically the explanation of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَىٰ. That actions are driven by intentions, and each person will get that which he intended. Right? The rest of the hadith now speaks about he whose migration was for Allah and His Messenger, then his migration was for Allah and His Messenger. Right? So finish it. It's not so long. It's not so long. Okay? Basically, then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Whosoever's hijrah was for Allah and His Messenger, then his hijrah was for Allah and His Messenger. Right? This is an example given by the Prophet ﷺ that you can basically apply to any act of worship. Whosoever salah was for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, then his salah was for the sake of Allah. Whosoever zakah, sadaqah was for Allah, then it was for Allah and His Messenger. Understand? This is an example, okay, given by the Prophet ﷺ. Then they explain why was, you see the repetition here. فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. It's a repetition. Right? Later on the hadith says that whoever migrates for the dunya and for woman, then فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Doesn't say, there's no repetition, man. That is hijrah was for the dunya and for the woman again. You with me? So why was the repetition? There's a long kalam on this. Basically, Ibn Rajab says that the reason for this repetition is because Allah and His Messenger is the ultimate goal. So the repetition is there to show you that that's the ultimate goal, to get to them. You with me? The other explanation is that it's out of respect. We want to mention Allah and His Messenger twice out of respect for them, rather than, right? Then the third explanation is that the Prophet ﷺ specifically chose these words because he did not want to be included in a pronoun with Allah. So what could have been said is, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, whosoever's hijrah is for Allah and His Messenger, then فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَيْهِمَا, then his hijrah is for the two of them. Makes sense, right? إِلَيْهِمَا, for them. But the Prophet didn't want to be included in one pronoun with Allah. إِلَيْهِمَا, the two of them, meaning Allah and His Messenger. He didn't want that. He wanted to be mentioned, and then Allah must be mentioned on His own. You with me? Showing that there must always be a disassociation of Allah and anything else. It must always be Allah and. You with me? You can't say the two of them, Allah and, which will imply Allah in this one. But you must mention Allah and so and so. You with me? And that's why in another hadith, in Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, or a person said, whosoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has verily been guided. Right? And whoever disobeys them has strayed. So here he used the pronoun for the two of them. Right? Whoever disobeys them has strayed. So the Prophet ﷺ said that he has spoken improperly, and told him that he should have stated, whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger has strayed. So there must be that stipulation, Allah and His Rasul. You can't use one. Is it a pronoun? It's a pronoun, no? Ilayhima. Right. Right. So this indicates that any action or speech that may lead to any kind of associating partners with Allah is to be strictly avoided. You with me? So even the Prophet ﷺ took care about his speech. He took care that you shouldn't say anything that implies that I'm on the same level as Allah. Now, and then obviously there's the meaning of hijrah, because the hijrah was mentioned. So what does hijrah mean? Hijrah basically means to leave or avoid something and to move from one thing to something else. Right? To leave of something means to make hijrah of that thing. Or to move from a place to a place is also a form of hijrah. Right? In terms of the Sharia, what does the word hijrah mean? In Sharia, it means leaving the lands of the kuffar, the lands of the disbelievers, to the land of Islam in order to implement your faith better. So you know that maybe here in South Africa, it will be easier if I lived in Saudi. I can implement Islam better and more openly. Whereas here, there's all these issues, etc. Maybe not so much here, more in the West. I think we have it quite easy. If you look at the West, women can't wear hijab, they get pulled off, they get fines, and cutting the beards and all these things, man. Here we have pretty much easy. So for them, hijrah is almost a must, because for them they can't implement Islam properly. Yes, they fight and mashallah they're strong, but this is basically what hijrah means. You move from one place to the place of kufr to a place of iman, so that you can implement your deen properly. Right? And hijrah through the history, there are two main hijrahs, right, that took place. The first was from Makkah to Abyssinia. That was the first hijrah that took place. The second hijrah, after they came back to Makkah, then the hijrah to Medina was done. This was the hijrah al-Kubra, the main hijrah, right, where all the Muslims had to migrate to Medina. And that was a command, that they had to leave Makkah and move. Some said that those who stayed behind, that's an act of kufr. Some said if you stayed behind, then you are sinful, right? That's obviously not a mas'ala for us right now. But obviously they made hijrah to Medina. Once that took place, that hijrah obviously marks the Muslim calendar, the hijrah. So if you say after hijrah, it refers to that hijrah, right? As for a different concept of hijrah, the word hijrah refers to any kind of hijrah, physical or spiritual, right? So the Prophet said, the muhajir, the one who makes hijrah, the muhajir, is the one who avoids what Allah has prohibited. So another form of hijrah is just to avoid anything haram. That's what the Prophet said, al-muhajir man hajara ma nahallahu an, the one who stays away from whatever Allah has made haram or prohibited. Then the hadith goes on and it says, he whose migration was to achieve some worldly benefit or to take some woman in marriage, then his migration was for that which he migrated. So you see here, there's no repetition, right? So here the Prophet ﷺ belittled the goal of the person who migrated for some worldly purpose by stating, then his migration is for that. Meaning, he belittled this one. Whereas the other one, he said, فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Here he said, فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then his migration is for that. So it's a form of belittlement. Understand? Without explicitly stating that what was being referred to. So he never stated anything specifically because it's not something of utmost importance. Okay? Also, the migration for the sake of Allah and His Messenger is done with one purpose in mind. There are numerous other reasons that may lead one to migrate, but there is no call to mention him. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ did not mention him. Understood? That's why he didn't make specific mention. Okay? So, in this passage, hijrah is mentioned for the dunya and for a woman. Right? So, firstly, for the dunya. What does the word dunya mean? It's known as this worldly life, but it also has the meaning of al-adna. Al-adna means that which is the closest thing. Why is it called this? Because it's the closest life. Meaning, we have the hereafter, we have this life is the closest. That's why it's called al-adna. Also, because this worldly life has been given in the dunya, is that it is so close to perishing. So close to perishing, so close before this dunya ends. That's why it's known as dunya. Al-adna, it's the closest thing to perishing. Right? So, Prophet mentioned making hijrah for the dunya. Is it permissible or not? Making hijrah for the dunya means some dunya purpose. So, if you feel that I'm going to leave South Africa and move to the UK because of business, that's hijrah for the dunya. Right? Is this something that's permissible or not? It's permissible, right? But again, here you have to weigh up pros and cons. Permissible thing, but you have to think, okay, if I go there, what's the pros and cons? Is it better for me to stay here or there? Right? What's worse? Because remember, kufr land, UK and here. But what's worse? You see, ideally you should be moving to a Muslim country, right? But maybe you can't, so now what? Now you come to lesser of two evils. For example, now you have to weigh up the pros and cons. Where can I worship Allah better? Where do I have better freedom? Where's the, where's Ahlul Sunnah strong? All these things you can look at, man. And then weigh up the pros and cons, and then you go with what's best for you and your deen. Understand? But if you're going to go for the dunya, and you know you're going to be faced with major fitna, major trials and tribulations in this place, then that's something that can become forbidden for you. Right? And the main example to be used is, if you look throughout the world, how many Arabs left their Muslim countries, went to wherever, and they lost their deen completely. Right? You find in South America, there are so many Arabs living there. In Brazil and Argentina, right? Arabs. I met a guy in Jamia from Chile, right? He says in Chile, there's lots of Arabs, right? With Arab names, they still have the names Ahmad and all of these things, but they don't know who's Allah. They don't know who's the Messenger. They never seen the Quran, opened the Quran. Because when their forefathers came, they were Muslim, but they then lived with the kuffar, so they became, in the shell type of thing. The Islam vanished slowly. 2 generations later, there's no Islam left. The only Islam is left is the Arabic name. You understand? They made hijrah for the dunya, right? And this was the result. So from this is a warning that you must also fear the dunya. Right? And then the mention was of women. Now we have again another benefit to look at, and that is Allah uses this a lot in the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ, where they mention something general and then they mention something specific of that thing, right? To highlight the importance of that thing. For example, in the verse of Quran, قُلْ مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًا لِجِبْرِيلَ. No. Man kana aduwan lillah, right? Whosoever is an enemy of Allah, right? Man kana aduwan lillah wa malaikatihi, and his angels, right? Then his books, wa Jibreel, wa Mikael, right? So Allah mentions who? The angels, and then Jibreel and Mikael. Are they not from the angels? They are from the angels. So why must He mention them? Status. It shows the importance of Jibreel. After He mentions angels, which is something general, He mentions something specific. Jibreel shows the importance of Jibreel. He is above the rest of the angels, right? Whosoever is an enemy of Jibreel and or the Malaika and Jibreel. You with me? So this is a way of, in Arabic, of highlighting the importance of something. You mention something general and then you mention a specific of that general. afterwards. Here, what does the Prophet say? Whoever makes hijrah for the dunya or for a woman. Is the woman not part of the dunya? The woman is dunya things, you with me? So why did he mention woman after dunya? Because of the status of a woman. And because of the dangers and fitna surrounding women. Right? And here, it shows us that women play a major role in your life, and they can be the reason for you going astray. They can be the reason for you changing your mind, man. Right? They can control you basically, man. As a man, you may think but a woman, especially a haram woman, can control you, man. So the dunya, you can see here, there was some saying people are making hijrah for the dunya. Hijrah is a great act of worship, and also it can be something that's done permissibly, but it's something great to leave your land for the dunya. Shows that the dunya has a great pull, man, over people, and especially women. You with me? And then there are hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it comes in Muslim, where he says, Inna dunya hulwa. Verily the world is sweet and alluring. Right? The dunya is sweet and alluring. Verily Allah is going to make you successes in it. Right? So look to see how you behave. فَيَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. Then he says, فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. Right? Beware of this world. Meaning fear this world. And وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء. And fear women. Beware of women. Verily, the first trial that afflicted the tribes of Israel was concerning women. And this is recorded by Muslim. So again, here he says particularly about women. And in another hadith, he said that ما تركت بعد فتنة أضر على الرجال من النساء. I have not left behind, or I have not left anything after me that is more harmful as a trial for men than women. So the biggest fitna in your life is women, right? And for those who are not married, much more, right? You will realize this. When you get married, you save yourself from this type of fitness. Much, or well, not completely save. You still have to fight the fitna of women. Because even you may be married and you can still find that there is major fitna surrounding women. Okay, that brings us to the end of the hadith. Then Imam Nawawi says that after that this hadith was narrated by the two imams of the scholars of hadith. Two imams of the scholars of hadith, meaning the two main muhaddithin, which was Bukhari and Muslim. Right, and it gives the full names: Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ibrahim ibn al-Mughirah ibn Bardizbah al-Bukhari. Right, and Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj ibn Muslim al-Qushayri al-Nisaburi. That's Imam Muslim, right? In the collections of authentic hadith, which are the most authentic works compiled, right? So according to Ahl Sunnah, the Quran is obviously the most authentic book, then Bukhari, then Muslim. There's a minority view that says Muslim is more authentic than Bukhari. However, the correct view is that Bukhari, and the majority's view is that Bukhari is more authentic than Muslim. And this goes back to the conditions that they statement. Because Muslim had conditions that he put down before he accepted a hadith for his Sahih. Bukhari had the one is slightly more strict than the other. That's why they came to the conclusion that Bukhari is more authentic than Muslim. And last benefit, if a hadith is found in Bukhari and Muslim, it is known as muttafaqun alayh. This hadith is Bukhari and Muslim, so we can say that al-hadith muttafaqun alayh, which means the hadith is agreed upon. Muttafaqun alayh means it's agreed upon. There is no doubt concerning the authenticity of the hadith. Right? And that brings us to the end of the first hadith. Next hadith, next week, inshallah, is hadith of Jibreel, which is quite long, so we'll probably do half of it or something like that. Inshallah. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Find on some poison. 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 Find on some poison.